LDM perspective. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the return of football and the racism that you might find in football as well. So just before I begin and continue everything, I just want to let you know that Liverpool's going to win the league. We're back. It's going to happen.
Well, you're a mind reader, you're a mind reader, bro. You're a fortune teller. You're a fortune teller right now, bro. Of course Liverpool are going to win. Yeah.
I'm going to be sitting with my chest out just so you can see the badge, you know, the love there. I got the black shirt on, so, you know, current climate and that.
Hear that.
It's cool, black and gold, repping. All right.
Are you done? All
right, I'm done. Yes, I'm Mo. Okay. I'm one of your hosts, Mo. I'm also joined by my co-hosts and friends.
Hi, I'm Kojo. You see,
Ali.
Your host, mate.
And Cam, yeah.
All right, cool, excellent. So basically, the season is returning back on the 17th of June. That's Wednesday. And this is after 3 months of a big postponement. The first game is actually going to be Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. And it's going to be 92 games in total. And the main aim is to try and finish the season before the end of July. So there's lots of reasons why the season has come back and stuff like that. But I wanted to let you know the main reason of the return of the season is to avoid a 762 million rebate from their broadcasting contracts. So if they didn't finish the season, they would have had to pay as much as 762 million for all the contracts which they have in terms of broadcasting games and stuff like that. You know, you've got your BT Sport and all those other sponsors that they've got. So in order for them not to pay back that money, they had to do the finish off the season. And that's the main reason why. So you've got teams like the German League has started already. I'm not sure if anybody's seen any of those games yet. The Bundesliga. And then you've got the La Liga and Serie A that are now going to be starting soon as well. But there's still some countries that have opted out. So France, Belgium, Holland, they're still not sure whether they're going to return back or do anything then. So I just wanted to get a general idea from everyone. If you guys miss football, if you miss sport, what's your feelings? Do you want it to come back? You know, what's the general consensus from everyone in regards to that?
Yeah, bro. I must say, yeah, obviously I support Man U and that. This is just repping, yeah, just in case, yeah. It's Ghana right here, man. I hope you can see that. Yeah, bare smiles, you know. You see, when you were putting the Liverpool thing, no one was actually smiling from. People were like, "What are you doing, bro? You're looking thin out here." Anyway, no. I support United, man. So I support Man U. So actually, before the season kind of was brought to this close, was suspended, we were doing quite well. You know, we went on a 12-game unbeaten run. We had a new player in Bruno Fernandes. We're waiting for Pogba and man like Rashford to come back. So right now I'm quite prime. Yeah, quite missed it. I must say, missed it quite a lot because it's almost like football becomes part of your life. Now, obviously, I'm not one of those fans that travel all the way to Manchester. So, boy, sorry. I know some people are like, he's not a diehard fan. He's not really a fan. I don't care. I support the team, mate. Deal with it. So I'm not really like, I'm not missing, like, it's not like I'm traveling to Manchester or anything like that. But yeah, just the whole entertainment value, waiting on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to, you know, watch the games live or to watch match of the day and the banter between kind of friends, especially a lot of my Arsenal fans. Liverpool just arrived, didn't it? Liverpool should just chill, man. But, you know, the banter between some of the old rivalries that we had with Arsenal and stuff. But yeah, you missed that. You missed that because football's almost become the fabric of the country, right? So apart from talking about weather, when you don't know someone, so you could meet someone on a bus or on a train, and you could literally kick off a conversation about, oh, the weather is great today. And they're like, oh yeah, it looks lovely. Football was kind of the same thing. That, you know, you could discuss with someone about football and it breaks barriers. So yeah, I think that kind of element and not having it around quite missed that a bit, I must say.
Just I guess for me, I guess I'm a general follower of football. I'm not an avid follower in that. I do support Arsenal, but you know, you could have a debate with me about Arsenal, and I really couldn't care less because I'm not really someone that follows football in as much detail as that. And so the season being cancelled didn't really have much of an effect on me. That's just how I feel. Didn't really care that much. I did find it interesting that it's happened on this magnitude, and it's sort of, have you ever seen anything like this since wartime? I don't think we've seen anything like this in terms of like football being cancelled like widespread since wartime. So I think that certainly was interesting. But I mean, like in terms of me, my following, like I might watch Match of the Day here and there, if I get the chance to, and I'll read things on certain news articles. But as far as like the season being cancelled and that sort of stuff, I didn't really care, to be honest.
Oh, unbelievable, mate.
Well, for me, I'm the same boat as Cam. I'm not really bothered. Well, I used to be a football diehard fan. I do support Man U. Don't get me wrong, but it's dried out of me, and the reason why it's dried out of me is because I see football now as just money game. Well, hence why it's come to a point where I'm just oblivious towards it and just clueless of what is going on. Like right now, you can ask me about any probably Manchester United fan. Player I wouldn't even know. Maybe the most I can know is Drogba, and then one or two. But I don't really know too much about it.
Wow.
And it's a bit too sad why is a lead to that. And because I was a footballer myself once, and I was so supportive with everything that was going on around me. And now all of a sudden, I just see it as a money game. And players are not putting their hardcore how it used to be. A little foul, they'll just take it and dry out and then make a scene out of it, whereby just when you get fouled, you just get up and play. That's the way I see it. That's the way I was brought up. And seeing those kind of stuff coming to now is just saying to me, I'm not really bothered. So I've dried out of it and I've come out of it. It's not because of my own ego or anything. It's just that I just see it's not important.
How can you be talking about Drogba? Drogba finished playing how long ago? Like, bro, where have you been? And they're rock.
That's how you know, yeah. That's how you know I'm not in football, mate. That's how you know. It's like I'm just in Mars at the moment, not on Earth, mate.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's interesting you say that, because obviously you've got a mix. You've got some people that care a lot, some people that don't. I did want to get an idea from the rest of the people in the audience today, what you guys' thoughts are. Did you miss it? Did you want it to come back? What does it mean to you, or anything like that? If there's anyone that wants to say anything. I think people are still on mute. I think some of your mics are still...
You're on mute, so you might need to...
My bad. No, just to add to that as well, like, I'm not the biggest football fan in the world, but I think for me, it's an opportunity now to kind of get engaged and trying to understand what its presence was and hopefully carrying that forward. And I think it's a great time to bring people together as well. Like, obviously there's competition and camaraderie, but I feel like it's a great chance for us just to kind of get involved in something, because I can imagine a lot of people been sitting at home being bored, nothing to do, not a lot to watch. But now, hopefully the football can bring back a sense of unity and just, yeah, the banter, the chatting, like the goals, like was that offside and whatnot. Obviously there's a bit VAR and whatnot, but that conversation now can be a hot topic and we can take our minds off of some of the negative stuff and put it in something that's kind of more of a positive thing. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully at the end of this season I can find a team that I'm a part of and I resonate with, and then hopefully I can push that forward. I'm looking towards like Chelsea, though, I can't lie.
No, bro. Man. You've got bare black players from, yeah? Bare black players now, man. Like, seriously, man. No, watch that. Come, we got you, mate.
Come on.
All right, cool. I like that. Anybody else wanting to say anything at all?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest football supporter. I'm a follower. I'm an Arsenal fan, so there wasn't much to look forward to anyway. Because where are we? We're ninth on the table. So, although to be fair, we are a game in hand. So we're on 28 games, I think. Last I checked the table.
Yeah.
So if we won our next fixture, I don't even know what that's against. We could move up to as high as 6 to 7. But anyway, I thought last season was a wash. I was just looking forward to the next one because and now it's looking like we might be selling Aubameyang, and it looks like they're in talks to maybe someone's looking to buy Lacazette as well. Is it in Inter? So it's not.
Madrid.
Is it them? Well, yeah, it's not. So as an Arsenal fan, there's really not much to look forward to in this season. So I'm thinking I'm kind of disappointed they're starting it back up again. Should just start over, just forget it and let's just do it over. So yeah, that's my feelings on it.
Yeah, cool, excellent. So just to remind everyone, when you're not speaking, just to keep your mics on mute, only because even though you're not saying nothing, the camera might switch to you, just because it might pick up other sounds from your surroundings. And if there is any comments or anything that you do want to make, do send a private message to Koj, LDN. So he'll be able to pick that up and add your comments or anything throughout the conversation. Seeing as we've discussed the whole returning and stuff like that, everyone happy about it, maybe we might want to touch on the whole racism in football kind of side of things, especially given what's happened at this particular time and a lot of the things that have been going on. How are Black people actually moving up in terms of after they finish their football career? Can they move up into coaching? Can they move up into backroom staff? And all those kind of things like that. So I did want to start off by opening it up to the other guys here, Ali, Kojo, Cam, and just kind of provide your perspective and your thoughts in terms of racism in football.
So just like yourself, Mo, I've just been doing a bit of research. I think some of the stats that I saw, though, especially for the Premier League, the last statistic from 2019, I saw more of a figure of 33% of Black players playing in the league. And I think it's interesting when you're looking at those numbers, because for me, the issue with racism is that it's nothing new. It's nothing we should be shocked about, because it just represents society. So some of the comments that Ladipo mentioned, that football kind of unites people, you know. So football is something that kind of brings people together from all different kind of cultural or kind of like class background. So football is kind of being used as the tool to try to educate the wider kind of problem which kind of happens in our society. But the problem is, if we fix the problem in our society, then there wouldn't be a racism in football. It's just simple as that. So when you're looking at some of the stats and then you're looking at why, especially looking at the managers, how come that doesn't transition into them actually being managers? And then you look at certain people, certain footballers who have actually finished their playing career, and straight away within the first year have landed top managerial jobs in the top 5 leagues in English top flight. And then you ask yourself, how come we don't have enough kind of Black managers coming through? I remember the stat that you mentioned, even with what's his name? The former West Brom manager. He's been sacked now. I think he's a different. He manages a different team now. Chris Moore, his name was, right? So even when you look at that, so for instance, you're looking at people like Gerrard. What's his name? Steven Gerrard, that used to play for Liverpool, the ex-Liverpool player, or they call him legend. I don't know what to refer to him, but yeah, Steven Gerrard. And then you're looking at Frank Lampard. These are players that literally finished their playing career and landed top flight jobs. Gerrard is Rangers manager. Lampard got into Derby and now he's managing Chelsea. Like seriously, you've got players. You've got Sol Campbell that has done all his UEFA Pro licenses. He's done everything. And he landed a job in League Two, Macclesfield or whatever that team was. And it just shows you. So if we're talking about equality, or you're talking about like Premier League at least representing the amount of players that play in it, then you'd be expecting close to about 20 to 30% of the managers being Black. Because a lot of these managers, it's not because they finish, a lot of these players, it's not because they finish playing their playing career and they don't want to get into management. It's just because they don't get opportunities. And one last thing I was going to mention is that there's something called the Rooney Rule. So the Rooney Rule was something that was introduced in the, I think it's the National Football League in America. And it was something that the FA picked up. Now the Rooney Rule basically means that if I'm a football club and I have, like, let's say a manager's role that I need to kind of advertise, I need to ensure that at least I interview one applicant from a BAME background. But the Premier League have not adopted that. That's for their kind of lower leagues from division, and what they call it, the division, what they're calling that, championship and below. They have adopted that Rooney Rule. But even that Rooney Rule, even though it was adopted, has not bridged that gap. So we're not seeing the same representation even within those kind of leagues. Because if the idea is that everyone that we interview for a job, we need to actually have one kind of applicant from a BME background, that is just basically like filling quotas. Yeah, okay, let me get more on. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to give more the job, but it just means that I had one Black applicant. That doesn't mean anything. Do you get what I mean? So there is you could bring so many examples that shows you the kind of racism that exists in football. And I'm not even talking about what happens on the terraces. I'm not talking about the conversations people have in their house and they go on the pitch, and even a player that is Black, like, is one of their players. But if that guy is having a bad game, they start hurling racial abuse at him. So I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking on that kind of level about the coaches, about the backroom staff, and about the managing team. The setup of that doesn't even represent the game in itself.
The question is quite alarming, but for me, it's not. How do I put it? I'm not surprised at all. You guys have just all tapped into exactly the point, because it's a structurally racism act that is happening right here, and it's been happening for years, and it's happening as we speak. And funny enough, what we are all talking about, the racism act, is South London within London is one of the best players. I can put my hand down for that. It's one of the best players. We have one of the best players in South London. And when you really tap into that, those young youth that are growing up, signing up for a club or whatsoever, majority of the time they don't make it. And what we are just tapping into, Premier League, Championship League, League One, League Two, going down and forth. It's not surprising, because Cam just made a good analogy towards that, is what they want. Is when he suits them, their own agenda, that's when we are highly favored. Is when it suits them, that's when our name shine. Is when it suits them, that's when we are favorable. Is when it suits them, that's when we are recognized. Is when it suits them, that's when everything about our pay, about our title, about our gender, we are noticeable. And it needs to stop, because as what Ladipo just tapped into, it needs to stop, because we come in as a unit. Football, in a sense, should bring us as a unit to make us as a human race to able to come together and be happy and have that moment and take all the heavy load on our shoulder and the negatively out of us. We're supposed to come together and make a good experience and a good happiness. So when you're leaving that environment, that atmosphere, you continue talking about it, and have a banter, and then have that happiness towards you. But it's not the case anymore, and it's not. And Dwight York, I've mentioned it. Andy Cole, I've mentioned it. All those old players that I know within themselves, they are capable, 100% capable to become a manager. And it's not surprised, because as what I'm saying and as what everyone's saying, for me to have an opportunity, it's like I'm applying for a job. How am I going to get that job if you don't give me opportunity? How am I going to get that job if you don't allow me to come for an interview? How am I going to understand anything about the job if I don't even have no experience? Yes, I'm in that field, but I need an opportunity. But then somehow I've done all my qualification, I've done all my ticket, I've done all the exams that I need to do to get through that door. And yet, hurdles by hurdles by hurdles by hurdles, just not for me not to get it. And obviously, I'm going to get frustrated and I'm going to be stressed and I'm going to give up at the end of it, because that's what they want. And yeah, that's what I need to say on that, because it's a bit sad. It's sad, to be frank.
Yeah, Mo, I've got a few people that want to kind of add to the conversation. I've got Samuel, and after Samuel, we'll go to the depot. Samuel, we can't hear you. Ladipo, do you want to come in now? I still feel like I'm not saying your name properly, man. And I'm reading.
Oh, it's cool, man. Everyone has
yeah?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just add to that as well. I think just looking at it from a historical perspective, I feel like football's been here since God knows when. Do you know what I mean? And the mentality that's come forth of it is quite a white establishment. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like they've installed their kind of culture and their kind of ways of doing things. But then thinking the forward perspective, looking at how many black athletes that have come through and done their thing within the football, you'd think that now that's created not a level playing field in itself, but more room, more dialects, more open conversation for those kind of positions to be filled for managers. So I'm going to agree with David. I think it's a shame as well, because obviously systematically they've had their kind of traditions instilled and not really willing to kind of change the dialect. But I feel like what it leads us to then to do is that black athletes have to then be even better and have to prove an even more valid point to prove that, oh, look, we are top people. Maybe we can bring him in and then maybe he can like play this position. Because I think at the same time, if you're looking at Gerrard and Lampard, if you look at what they've done for their clubs and whatnot, that gave them that kind of that level of establishment to be like, you know what, these guys are top of what they do. And it made it easier for them to sit in them places. And even from a marketing perspective as well, like the reason why you can think that Lampard got that position was because it's Lampard. Chelsea, like the money's still going to come in, people are going to agree with those decisions. So at the same time, it's a big shame, but fundamentally, if you look back and try to move forwards, these guys have been doing their thing since how long? So I feel like now the dialect and the conversation being brought up, that I feel like people now need to understand that things obviously systematically need to change. But I think that's just my point, really. I think overall, it's just a shame that over the years that have come and people that have done their thing still haven't been able to create waves for people to then enter those managerial positions and take a stand. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I did want to come in, but I wanted to see if we can try and get Samuel in first to make his comment. I'm not sure if your mic is working right now. If you want to say something. No. All right, we'll come back to Samuel.
I've told Samuel a message, so once he responds, I'll let you know more. We'll bring him in.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, no, I kind of share a lot of the sentiments all you guys have mentioned. In terms of racism in football, the way I see it more is that racism is a social problem. And the problem that you have with having such a big social problem is that now filters down into every element of society, be it jobs, be it sports, be it working, be it food or whatever. You've got such a big social problem in terms of the society is racist, and you've got unconscious bias, which are in your subconscious every day, all the time. So things like when someone goes for a job and you want to accept someone or whatever, because your society is racist and you've got this subconscious bias, you're going to always find situations where black people, other ethnic minorities are underfavored to go for certain jobs or promotions or to go forward in certain things. And when we talk about racism in football, I feel the struggle is that a lot of people might isolate it and look at it just as a football thing. But I do really feel, because the wider problem of society being so racist, it's always going to be difficult to then kind of keep football out of that mix in that sense, or kind of just keep it individually, be it fans in the ground feeling it's okay to say certain racist stance just because their social group around them is shouting and saying these things and they're joining in because it's fun, it's nice. It's not necessarily an individual kind of problem with most people anyway, I find. So yeah, I just feel if we can fix society's racial problem, which a lot of people are reluctant to admit or address, that as a society, we are, the UK is very racist. As bad as it may sound, but as a society, it's very racist. And until we identify and confirm that, then we can basically kind of look at those things, I find.
Samuel, sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, good to have you on, mate. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect, mate.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so for me, I'm a football coach. That's like part of my different things I'm involved in. So yeah, I'm just trying to give my perspective on it. I just remember, as everyone probably knows, you do football coaching badges. So I just remember doing my level 2 football coaching, and the assessor saying, "Yes, you're a good coach," but it was an old white guy. He was like, "Yeah, you're a good coach, but you know, unfortunately, your kind don't really go too far in football." So that's something that really stuck with me. And
What?
you know,
What?
you know what? the way
Hold
he
on,
said it
Sam.
sounds bad, but he just meant, yeah, like
Did he
black,
say it trying to be
basically
like
saying black
honest
culture
with you? He wasn't trying to put you down. He was just kind of give you a realistic gauge as a friend, maybe. Or
Yeah,
was he
it was
saying
one of
that?
them. You know what? It, yeah, yeah. It was one of the, it was more of an honest. It was more of an honest thing. Hello.
Yeah, Samuel. Yeah, you broke. Yeah, you're here. You're here. We can hear you. Carry
Yeah,
on, sir.
it was more of a you know, it was probably like in his 70s. You know the way the old school white guys. Like, it was more of an honest thing. It wasn't like trying to put me down because he was actually quite complimentary about my coaching. So it was like, yeah, yeah. He was just saying, yeah. Unfortunately, it will be tricky, and your kind don't really go too far in football. But just that was many years ago. But just over the years, what I've just found is that, you know, football is very much it's like a boys' club. Do you know what I mean? So for us black guys or coaches trying to make it in football, you know, it's a thing of how can we get involved in the boys' club? Because Mo sent me a thing the other yesterday with Dwight York, and he was complaining about, obviously he's not in, you know, he's been trying to get a job, etc. But for me, Dwight York, the question I ask is, you know, are you part of the boys' club? You know, it's all good saying, oh, you know, he's got endorsements from Fergie, but even in that, when I heard that, I thought to myself, well, you know, what endorsement is Fergie giving you? Is he giving you endorsements for Man U? Because how much managers does Man United have? As Dwight York's name being put forward for Man U job? Even, you know, when you look at the lower teams, reserves, youth team, you know, where's Fergie helping you there? You know, so yeah, I just look at it in terms of either we start being part of the boys' clubs, or we start getting, you know, black owners. You know, these are going to be our best ways of getting in. Because like the guy said many years ago, as much as it sounds bad, and you know, you look guys are all shocked, he was right. Like just look at the numbers. Like where, you know, it's really difficult for us to break through. So, you know, we are going to have to look at those kind of things. You know, can we part of the boys' club where, you know, that's where all the deals get transacted, or, you know, more of our black owners are going to have to step forward.
Can I have something quick, guys? Sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
You raised quite a good point. The boys' club, but what is the boys' club?
The boys' club is basically like the managerial cycle of the Sam Allardyces, the Alan Pardys. So basically, all those guys who are always offered the jobs. Apart from the top jobs will go to the Klopps, the Peps, but like in terms of the run-of-the-mill jobs, which, you know, us black coaches will like to get, it sort of goes to all the people who, do you know what I mean, who are part of the club. You know, they probably go to the meetings, they probably go to the drinks. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like sending in a CV, you know, I'm sure many of us know, for a lot of the jobs, there's no point. You know, it's already been handed out to someone. Do you know what I mean? So if you're part of that club, in terms of, listen, we're looking to get a new manager. Do you want it? Do you know what I mean? So it's almost done behind the scenes kind of thing. So yeah, that's what it means in terms of like a boys' club.
Okay.
Let me get Ladipo to chime in here. I know you want to make a
I just
point.
want to add a quick point as well. I feel like getting into those kind of environments, I feel like a marketing perspective needs to be endured as well, because at the same time, it's a message that needs to be broadcast across a lot of teams and a lot of football areas and whatnot. And I feel like once that message kind of gets shifted in and changed socially, I feel like then people are more aware, and those people can be invited into those environments. But until then, it's going to be quite difficult. But I feel like situations like this now, of like what's going on in the current climate, I feel like now, if like the FA and like UEFA and whatnot start to make these kind of implementations here and there, slowly those effects can kind of trickle in, and we can kind of see a more equal playing ground. But at the same time, I feel like with football as well, marketing is kind of the big faculty in how people see things, great to other people. So I feel like once those kind of things are in place, that'll kind of help govern a more broad path for everyone to kind of get their foot in the door. But then again, it's if people are willing to actually allow this message to be sent across.
So like yourself, Samuel, I've only done it. I've done the level 1. I passed the level 1, and I think that experience that you had, though, the reason why I just have a little bit of thing against it is, for instance, when I was in business school and I was studying business studies, I remember one of my lecturers said to us that only 1 out of 10 businesses are going to make it. And the interesting part with these things, even though that they're factual, is that they do plant a seed. You do then start asking yourself, why am I even doing here? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, what's the point of me being a business course if you're going to say that to me, even though it's the reality? So yes, I agree that yes, sometimes having that picture, that reality is quite good, but then it plants a seed where someone might just give up. But that person could be the person that could have actually broke through and changed everything for everyone else that's coming through. So I feel like that there is a negativity, there is a negative aspect to that. But I'm also going back to a point that was made earlier regarding representation, because I think Ladipo mentioned Lampard and Gerrard, and regarding how marketable they are and how they were elite kind of in their kind of field and stuff. And I'll say, I'll compare that to, what's his name? Sol Campbell was an elite footballer, one of the best defenders in the world at that time. So I can understand that. But then the only other thing I was going to mention, though, is that for the black managers that actually do make it, and they get to that pinnacle of managing maybe a top flight team, they almost have to hold, because they are being judged on everything else that happens. Meaning that if they fail, then some of these bosses or some of these chairmen feel that they are kind of vindicated for not hiring black people, because, oh, look, we gave Chris Moore a chance and look at what happened to him. So I feel like the pressure on that black man, and this is in all walks of life, where you feel like you need to represent the people. It shouldn't be upon just one black man in a one position to represent the rest of the black population. It doesn't mean because that one black person has failed, everyone else is going to fail. Do you get what I mean? And I feel like that's pressures I saw that come on board, where it's almost like you are being tainted or you're being measured by the rest of the population, because we haven't seen anyone come through from that kind of field. So once you are put in that position, it's almost like you're kind of the representative for everyone else, and you have more pressure on you to kind of deliver. And then when we talk about those kind of, I'm not sure the term that was used, but there was some sort of club. What was it that Samuel said? Sorry, Samuel. He said there was some sort of like an...
like a boys club.
Boys club, yes. Yeah. And that boys club is interesting because these boys club, these managers are being sacked left, right, center, but they always get back into employment. Yeah, there's some Allardyces, Alan Kirbishley, Alan Pardew, bloody Steve Bruce, mate. The name is endless, right? These guys are getting job left, right, center. They could get sacked one day, next minute they got another job. How does that work? And do you know what it is with the boys club stuff? And I do agree, because it's like going to work. You know, once you start working in this kind of establishment, you do understand even if you don't drink, you might need to go out for a drink, because that's where the top managers are. That's when they need to have these conversations. But also, it should not be, what I'm trying to say here is that your kind of quality or your skill set or your experience should not be based on you going out for a drink. Should not be based on you being part of a boys club. Because first of all, I might not even live close to you. I might not even be in your circle. I've never been in your circle. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a shame that has to be the case. But I do fully understand the boys club, because as I said, in all our walks of life, when you work in the corporate world, you do understand how meaningful it is to go out for a drink, because that's where you're getting that promotion. That's where the handshakes are being made. You know, we'll make it look out like, you know what, we're going to advertise this job. We're going to make it like anyone could get it, but you are the person that getting it. Don't worry about anyone else that's applying. It's just to meet that quota. Do you know what I mean? And it's sad for those kind of stuff to be happening, I would say.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It kind of comes back to what I was saying in terms of a society problem. So you've got the whole society problem of the whole boys club element. It's definitely in the financial industry. I know a lot of the bank managers and bank CEOs and stuff like that literally move from different companies, be it insurance or whatever, just mainly because of who they know and the circle that they surround themselves with. Same as in the whole football, as you mentioned. I mean, one thing I did want to touch on was, before we wrap up and finish anyway, we'll probably finish in the next 10 minutes, is do you feel this whole, is it fight football, kick it out, or racism or that, do you feel has actually made a proper impact in terms of what they've tried to achieve to stop racism? Or is it another one of those empty shell kind of things that they wanted to just say, but actually not really do anything about?
Let me take that off. So for me personally, are you talking about more? Are you talking about this Black Lives Matters, or are you talking about just the movement? What is it? What are you relating it to this to?
So there's certain organizations that's been set up to kind of combat racism in football. One of them that Mo mentioned is called Kick It Out. So the organization is purely set up to fight racism. And I guess the question is, do you feel like these organizations are kind of working regarding tackling the issues that we have, the racism issues we have in football, or do we feel like this is just more of like a PR campaign by the Premier League or the FA to say we are doing something about it, but it's an empty show because there's no results, there's no kind of definitive results that come off the back of that?
Okay, thanks for that. I think it's just a mock-up. I think it's just a mock-up whereby at this moment of time, there's a lot of things that is going on, a lot of movement that is going on. Obviously, they want to stand out because they don't want themselves to be boycott or being harassed or fined or something to down those lines anyway. But as what the audience have mentioned right now is this football is part of history, and I believe is not going to change. I believe it's not going to change because it's who they are and is within the system itself, you know, systematic racism into that, you know, in structural racism. So it's not going to change. It's just a mock-up. And then the mock-up, then give it a bit for a few months, for a few years, it's just going to die down. And then the same thing is going to happen again. It's a repetition. Unless what I believe and what I feel like, unless is that these clubs are fined. When I mean they're fined, they are fined. When they're fined harshly. And as well, I think, Coach, you addressed this. It's like hiring someone in the company, a corporation company, because you've got one black employee, that makes it okay. No, it's not. Doesn't make it okay. It needs to be equal. It needs to be at least 40 or 30% within that kind of corporation. You know, you don't have 1% and then you think that it's fine. And then on top of that, when you in the club having this optional people of color within your club, when they do retire, it should be based on merit. If they want to get like a managerial position afterwards, it should be a merit. And obviously Sam tapped into that, the boys club. Well, the boys club, I condone it. I'm not really too fan of it because, as what Kojo mentioned, it's not everyone in that kind of mindset where you need to go all the time after work and have a drink or have a lad moment, because I'm not that kind of person. So you can imagine, if I'm not that kind of person, I don't like drinking and I don't like smoking that much, but obviously I do like to have a good time. And me putting myself into a boys club, and you know what the boys club is about, maybe taking drugs, maybe drinking, maybe having different type of girls, and then I'm not that kind of person, that shouldn't outcast me not to get the position. It should be based on my history of football within the merit side, and it should also based on the fund that I've already accumulated, and should based on how talented I am as a player. So therefore, when I do retire in the age of 35 or 38, whatever between those lines, if I want to apply for becoming a manager for the England club, I should be able to get it. It shouldn't based on because I'm not a boys club. It shouldn't based on because I'm not on this, whatever. It should just based on what me as a player that I've done and to contribute within the Premier League or Syria League or Spain League or whatever league it is, I should be to get the job. And if I don't get that job, then there's alarming. And in that alarming, then they will look into and investigate, and then they should fine the club. When I mean fine the club, it's not 1,000, it's millions and millions. And then if those clubs are accountable for those actions and it's happening, I don't think the racism would continue. They'll be scared, and obviously they will act into it. That's what I think. So for me, in my summary, what I need to say is a mock-up, and I can see it go back in again and then just inbred it, and everything is back to normal again, because we're not going to talk about it, and black people don't have the position where to talk about it because we're not in that high level, you know, to be able to talk about it, and then just wasted. So yeah.
Can we get Jide? Oh, sorry, Kam, were you going to say something? After you will get Jide to come in there.
I mean, I just wanted to say, firstly, I think it starts with a change of mindset in the clubs, especially in the big clubs as well, in terms of what they can do to change. Because you can have the FA, you can have all these organizations bringing these rules, but that's not really going to bring any change unless there's a change in mindset. You can bring rules. You can't legislate against ignorance. So there has to be change in the mindset, and a lot of that comes with education. It comes for those. So my question is, what's happening in terms of like
the clubs in the Premier Leagues or even the other leagues in terms of what conversations are taking place in the boardrooms with the chairman, chair people, about what sort of things should be done in order to have a more diverse makeup in terms of like coaching staff, because there certainly isn't an issue with race in terms of players. That's not an issue. You have a decent makeup, in terms of players in the team, but the issue then comes into play about the backroom staff. And although there are organizations trying to tackle racism, I'd like to know what conversations are happening in terms of the boardrooms. What are they doing in terms of getting into the boardrooms? What conversations are taking place? I think there needs to be a bit more transparency in terms of what's happening there. And as I said, all of this has to really start from a change of a mindset. You can put as many rules as you want in place, but none of that's going to change unless the mindset through some form of education change. I guess in terms of granting opportunities to more backroom staff, I guess it would be about having more Black owners of teams, but that's something that could take a long time. It could take a while before that even happens. And in order for that to happen, the powers that be need to enable those sort of people to even enter those realms and make those purchases of certain teams or get into the board meetings of certain teams in order to have those sort of discussions and questions and that sort of stuff. But without that happening, not much else will change.
Yeah, Jide, do you mind coming in at this point?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a few points. First is a response to the point Ali made about fining clubs. Yeah, I would support that. I'd be in favor. I'd back that, but I think fining a club like 30%, even for persistent racist abuse from fans, would be, in my opinion, would be too high. I mean, given when you consider the fact that a lot of the times the club can actually control what the fans are doing. All they can do is punish the fans after the fact. So, finding them 30% of their revenue, of their income, it eventually flow down. It start to hit them, hit the players' pay, and it probably hit whatever schemes they've got in the background trying to promote diversity within the club. So I just think maybe we need to be a bit. I mean, it's racist abuse should be dealt with harshly, but you gotta consider the unforeseen consequences of how we fine clubs for persistent racist abuse. The second is someone made the point about you can legislate against ignorance. That's true to some extent. Now, but the truth is, laws can inform people's attitudes. It can influence people's attitudes. If something's on the books, on the statute books, as in black and white as being wrong, it will start to inform how we act. That's just how laws work. They influence how some people know theft is wrong because it's against the law to steal. So the two can go hand in hand. So I wouldn't dismiss the impact of legislation or the import it can bring into this context. In terms of punishment for racist abuse, I think some clubs are moving in the right directions. I think almost all the Premier League clubs now institute like a ban for life if you're caught, even if it's not even on the pitch, even if it's on social media, they'll ban you for life. Now I don't know how pervasive that is, but I think stuff like that would act as a disincentive. And finally, on kick it out. Yeah, I don't think kick it out, even though it's been doing its thing since like the 90s. It's not had much impact because every now and then, like every 2 years, they launch a campaign. So whatever they're doing, it's clearly not working. But I mean, you could say the same for many anti-racism organizations. Even Black Lives Matters, for example. I was reading a study in the FT just the last week that shows that they haven't had much impact in terms of since they came on the scene in 2013. So yeah, sometimes these organizations, maybe they're not focused. Maybe they need to be more focused as to what they want, as opposed to having this scattergun approach like I see in Black Lives Matter, where you don't really know exactly what they're aiming for, what they're pushing for. So Yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Ladipo?
Yeah, oh, go on.
Yeah, just to add on to Jide as well, I think 100% in terms of just like kick it out and whatnot, the campaigns coming out in dribs and drabs isn't going to do what it's supposed to do. I feel like they need to have a continuous push and they need more longevity in what they're doing, a continuous output of just letting people know that this behavior is not tolerable. And I feel like as well, like if people and the UEFA think it's such a thing, why aren't clubs getting fined and then further investigation, banning fans, making a stance and letting people know that this is not acceptable at all. It needs to be a continuous thing rather than the odd case here and there. And I feel like the media aren't helping as well. When you're looking at factors like Sterling, the way they're portraying him and they're feeding into that fire, that's not going to help the overall issue as well. And I feel like if things like that are happening, that needs to get called out as well. And if people are calling out and regulating where they can, I feel like less people will be willing to kind of exuberate that kind of idea they have or that ideology of being racist. They'll be quite fearful because if they get caught, it's going to be some serious conditions. So I feel like at the same time, it needs to be a general consensus and clubs need to be putting that at their forefront. Can you imagine you're a big club, some of your top players who are bringing in, scoring goals and making a difference, and now they're going to be feeling down and feeling out of place because you've got a bunch of 10 guys in the crowds chatting a lot of crap. How are you going to sit there and just be like, oh, okay, we're going to just ban you and just call it a day? You can't be having that, because imagine that guy is not putting his input into the game, then you're going to be like annoyed again. So I feel like it's a cycle that if clubs really want to stand for their players and what they are and the clubs themselves, and if they got black players in there, they need to start representing that and showing that and letting those players feel welcome, letting those players feel like they're at home, and making sure fans got to follow a protocol. Because if that keeps happening, how can you expect people to perform at their best? It's not gonna be a thing. And me personally, I just think the media needs to chill out. If the media wanna have this whole idea of trying to perceptualize this whole togetherness and whatnot, that stuff can't be tolerated. Because I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of people will get that information from those media houses and follow off of that. And if the media house is saying no to it and not giving into that, then other people have to follow suit. And that's where people get their information from. A lot of people aren't clever enough to kind of make decisions for themselves. They're going to look for other people to follow off. And if those big houses aren't saying things, then what do we expect from all these other people just chatting a lot of crap? But at the same time, I feel like in due course, especially with what's happening now in current culture, society's not going to have it. Especially if things like Sterling in the newspaper, we're not going to tolerate that. And I feel like a lot of people now have that backbone to speak up and say something. It would be a complete shame if the UEFA and Kick Out Racism can't see that and then utilize that to even better their own like marketing stance and to push that. If it's not, then you can just tell this whole thing's like a rigged environment. And why should black people have to participate in such an environment and then for them to win off us and, you know what I mean, us feeling uncomfortable again? But yeah, I felt the media need to kind of have a little tweak in their system and see what they got to do about that, personally.
Can I just chime in? This is just going to Jide, I think it was Jide's point about legislation and how that can inform and influence people's attitudes. And I certainly don't disagree with him on that point. I think what I was trying to drive home was that it can't just be rules alone, because as we mentioned earlier in the episode, there were rules around quotas, which, you know, in that you had to interview a candidate from a BAME community, a black candidate for a particular role. But as teams, you know, have done so, they can do that, but then they can just get around that and just say, okay, we've interviewed that person, that's it, we fill that quota. And then, you know, we can go and still make an informed decision on who we want to hire. And that can quite easily not be someone, not be the black candidate. And the point I was trying to make is that rules can help, but there still needs to be a change in the mindset and through education, because if there isn't that sort of change, then these teams will find some way to get around that rule in terms of like changing that certain level of ignorance in order to hire that particular black candidate. Things like theft, like offenses like theft, I know you used that as an example. That's, you know, stealing's wrong, full stop. You know, you can legislate against that, and that's black and white in terms of like, you stole something, you didn't. Whereas I feel like with trying to legislate in terms of like attitudes towards race, you can put as many rules in place, but if an ignorant person has a particular view in terms of like race and that, you can't, a rule's not going to change that ignorance. They're still going to hold that ignorance regardless of what a particular rule has been put in place. And so even if that rule's there, you still need to have education in terms of like stepping into those boardrooms and like trying to deliver, as I'm saying, educate them in terms of like their ignorance and how they may understand and how they can change things, even in terms of like their, you know, understanding white privilege, what comes with that, and how they can change things. Because as I said, in some ways, rules doesn't change ignorance. Ignorance can still stay there, even once a rule.
Cam, you. Sorry, guys. I just want to highlight this kind of what Cam just addressed. All right, you mentioned about what you just said, right? Okay, but put in another scenario. What if, right? How do I put this? I think I've lost my thought. What if what you just said, right, is in another terms? If you know you're gonna kill someone, and there's the consequences for that, would you want to go and put yourself to go and kill that person? It is a huge consequences. When I mean
cool.
huge consequence.
That okay, cool. That's an extreme. Okay, let me give you an example. It's like cannabis. It's like people who smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
It's against the law to be in possession of it.
Yeah.
You can go to prison for being in possession of cannabis, but some people are still gonna go against that particular law because they have a particular mindset towards that. It's not the fact that it's against the law. It's not going to change their viewpoint. If they're someone that smokes cannabis and they don't agree with the law, because remember these laws are man-made, so there might be a particular law in place, but you might not agree with it.
Okay.
So that's not going to change the view.
Yeah. No, I heard you. I'm just trying to see in the mindset, in the other perspective side, what if there's a huge consequences? As a person like me, I will be scared of the law because I don't wanna take that accountability on myself, because if I know there's gonna be a huge fine, £1 million that I can't possess for myself. Maybe it's just different individual, and that's where the mindset comes.
And you know what, you're right. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it can't just be that alone. I think that's what I was trying to drive home in terms.
You need to be other places.
Yeah,
you're
right. The chat is heating up. I know Mo has been wanting to come in, so I'll let Mo come in. I wanted to mention something, then I'll go to the chat because there's been some really good points that's been highlighted that I want to share with the rest of the audience. So go on.
Yeah. So for me, I've identified that racism is more a social problem than it is a football or FIFA problem isolated singly. So I'm going to say something controversial here. I personally think that FIFA, or be it the Football Association, shouldn't try to fight to stop racism, because I believe it's something that is out of their control. Ultimately, they're never really going to be able to stop racism if you have a racist society. It's just going to be too difficult to fight. So I believe another alternative they should be doing is, let's protect our Black and ethnic minority players from racism, as opposed to trying to fight to stop it. And the way in which I say that is, more example, let's say you've got a football match and you've got players chanting whatever, blah, blah, blah. They could put a rule, literally like a free strike rule that comes up on the big screen. And once it hits the 3 strikes where the incidents happen 3 times, the game is stopped, and then the players have to come back again and play again without no fans and resume from the point that they stopped. So that's another scenario. 1, it hurts the team because the team obviously has to come back, blah, blah, blah. And 2, it hurts the fans as well. 1, because they see it as, obviously the game's postponed. And then 2, it now forces other fans that see such stuff going on, they will be like, no, you guys stop doing that shit. Otherwise you're going to spoil the game for the rest of us because it's going to discontinue. So I feel there should be more elements of, let's not try to fight racism. Let's just actually protect our current community of Black and ethnic minority. And this doesn't even have to be within the game. This could be within the media, slandering certain players or whatever. I feel the FIFA should have a position to step in and say, nah, you can't be doing this to our players or whatever, especially if you're going to be saying such and such from Manchester United or such and such from this and that. No, to get them to cut stuff like that, I think they should be more in terms of protecting as opposed to the stopping, because we all know that them trying to stop racism in football has not worked. They've been trying for over 30 years now. It doesn't work. They do all this empty stuff. And I just feel that they should actually just concentrate more on protecting our players, because I think as the other guys mentioned before, there's the mental concerns in terms of the players, there's the physical abuse and stuff like that. And I'd rather protect those individuals than actually trying to fight something which they actually have no power over and can't control.
Yeah. I know the chat is heating up, so guys, I'll get to you. I know we've got G-Day, Ladipo, we've got a few people that want to chip in here. But just a point that was made on there by Joe is that the point about, so let me just touch on a few things before I bring in Joe's point. So the idea of the fine, and I'm just going to chip in here just a little bit. All those kind of fines and legislation is great, but I feel like, as you've mentioned more, it is a social problem. So I feel like any money that goes into these organizations should be on the education of these people. So for instance, just reading an article on The Guardian, you could, for instance, find someone, you find a fan, lifetime ban. That fan has kids in their house. They have their friends going to watch the football games. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've changed their mindset, because their children are still being educated in that way. That child is still going to be a fan of that football club in the next couple of years, and they must still behave in that way. So yes, you are putting that fine out there, but it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. And that's what I always talk about. You need to kind of, if you want to get rid of these things, it's not about selling tapes, it's about getting down to the root cause. But I do also understand though that before you get down to the root cause, you might need to put certain things in place to allow you to get there in the first place. So yes, it is part and parcel of what should be done, but I don't feel like that should be the main driving regarding eradicating, because it doesn't really eradicate the issues. People are being fined, but we're still seeing these issues now. Not too long ago, I shared a video on one of our platforms with Coventry fans. That now they are fans, they are human beings, they live in their houses. They all come together and they start abusing two young youths in Coventry. I literally had to call my cousin just to check on him to see whether it was okay. But these are the same fans that go to the football ground, and they behave the same way when they are outside the football ground. But in regards to taking that ownership, and in regards to these kind of organizations, what they should do, I just say that there's more education, as Cam said. I feel like you need to get to the grassroots of trying to educate people, because I do Sunday league football with the kids, and I don't see no kick it out there. There isn't any courses that people are taking. The coaches might be taking those courses, but the parents, are the parents on these kind of courses? Are the players actually aware of these kind of stuff? Do you know what I mean? So I know that in regards to getting to the grassroots, some of these organizations haven't embedded themselves in the grassroots kind of games yet. But on the other point, I was just going to mention what Joe mentioned and Jide actually touched on as well. It's about Black players actually taking their ownership to actually make a stand. So for instance, I've seen lots of examples of Black players actually walking off the field of play. Balotelli has done it before. He was shown a red card. Sorry, I think there may be a lot of background noise here. He was shown a red card and he was fined by the club and all that kind of stuff. He was even fined by the Italian league. And I remember there was an interview by Igalo. So Igalo is the new Nigerian player that we have in Man U. You see, what I was saying to Ladipo, mate, we have African players at Man U, mate. One of them is Igalo, yeah? So he came on and they were asking him about the current kind of climate regarding Black Lives Matter. And one thing he was saying is that obviously he's played in China and he suffers a lot of kind of racism in China. And literally what some of these players do is that they zone out and they just get on with their football. And that's what we've been made to do because of the structures that have been in place. It doesn't support that player if they say that, you know what, I'm walking off, because he might get a fine, the club might get a fine, all these kind of stuff. So he said to himself that now, if he was to suffer that again, he's actually going to walk off the field of play. So I think the point that Joe and Jide were mentioning is that should we not put the onus back on these players to say if they're suffering this, they should just kind of like walk out and not play any longer? I'm not sure what that's one thing that they wanted to touch on. But also one thing that Jide wanted to do, Jide wanted to kind of...
Just to follow on what you're saying, is it to walk out in as a unity? So let's say there's like 5 players on the pitch, they all walk out, or is it just the individual walking out?
So as you mentioned though, this is the kind of support that I think what you were trying to allude to, because there should be support within the club to say, that if any one of our players suffers this kind of stuff, we are with you. And if you're walking off, we are going to walk off with you as a club to make a statement. That's what I feel like the club should be doing to protect that player. That player should not be left on their own to deal with these issues, because it's actually, as we've all mentioned, it's not a football issue, it's a society issue that comes onto the football pitch. So Jide, let me just put some lists here. So Jide will come in, then we have the depot to come in, and I have someone saying iPhone, but I'm not sure who that person is, but that person could come in after Ladipo.
Yeah, that's Samuel. Samuel's on the
Oh,
iPhone.
is that Samuel? Okay, yes. Then Samuel will come in after Ladipo. So Jide, if you're there, do you mind just chiming in?
So just to follow up on the point I actually made earlier about the players being ready to walk the walk. Now that I actually think about it, it might be harder said than done, because now I'm thinking about Colin, what's his last name? The American football.
Kaepernick.
Yeah, him. Like he obviously took a stand and put himself out there, but then when the consequences came in, when no football club or no football team would sign him, it seemed to have a real disincentivizing impact. Like no one sort of walked out with him and said, no one put themselves on the line and said, if no one signs him, I'm not playing for you. None of the big players, the Bradys, etc., like really stuck their necks out for him. So maybe that's a reason why. But then again, I think the English football team has a high percentage of black players, and I think if Raheem Sterling walked off in a game against like a racist country, he'd have backup in that situation, because there'd be solidarity, they'd come around him. But then I'm thinking of a black player who's playing for a Chinese club. He's not going to have that sort of bargaining power to be able to really effect any change over there. So I guess you got to take each individual case. I mean, it's easy for me to actually say that, you got to walk the walk, but I guess it's not as easy. It's easier said than done. To go back, just to address Cam's point, yeah, I think what I was saying was just more a general point, as laws can affect people's attitudes, can influence them, can educate people, make them see things from a negative. But overall, I think you are right. I do agree with you, because making racist chants in football games is actually against the law. I think there's an act in place where it's actually you can get sentenced, you can get charged and get a fine up to £1,000, and that obviously hasn't kicked it out entirely. So I guess, yeah, you can't just legislate against ignorance entirely, but I was just making a general point about laws in general, how they can influence human conduct, human attitudes. And yeah, I think one solution which has been proposed and which I would support would be unconscious bias training. So if, I don't know, football clubs started instituting that for recruiters, for board members, just across the board, that might go some way towards addressing this disproportionate lack of representation of Black and Asian people on coaches and managers. Maybe they could even institute it's like affirmative action, but not quite. We have something like that in the UK, where if you have two candidates for a job and they're almost identical, you have to hire the one that's underrepresented in the organization. So if you've got a Black manager or a Black candidate and a white candidate, and the Black candidate is only slightly not as good as the white candidate, you should go with the Black candidate. So I would love to see something like that. I know the Rooney Rule is a good start, but maybe they could go farther and institute some positive action. That's what it's called, like that in football. And sorry, is your name Joel? Joel, you made the point about FIFA not fighting racism. I think, and then you gave the example of the 3-strike rule, but I think that's that would be FIFA fighting racism. If FIFA instituted a 3-strike rule, FIFA would be fighting racism in that case situation. So I didn't quite follow the argument you were making there, but maybe that's just my misunderstanding. And also, if we say FIFA shouldn't fight racism and society, we should just leave it to society, then by that if we can take that argument even further and say no organization should fight racism, the TFL shouldn't fight racism, the BBC shouldn't fight racism. You know, they shouldn't try to diversify their boards. And I don't think that's, we can just put the onus on society alone. You know, corporations have their role to play in fighting racism, and we can't just let them off the hook because they're huge beneficiaries. They benefit a lot from Black people. We buy their tickets, we pay for their TV license, we buy their products, so they should be trying to make the world better for us as well. We shouldn't just let them off the hook. Yeah, that's
excellent points, mate. I totally agree with the last point that you made there, though. A different perspective. I really wanted to come in on the Colin Kaepernick thing, but I have to keep quiet. I need to allow Samuel to come in here at this point. Samuel, I hope you could still hear us and your mic is okay at this point. Samuel, are you there?
Yeah, no, I just want to just add to obviously this, interesting debate. Obviously I'm in the field, so I can always just add a few bits. The first part I wanted to just address was kick it out. So where my team plays football, kick it out is almost 5 minutes away. I remember the first time I walked past and I thought, wow, kick it out. Like, this is actually their office. And just on the part of whether they do enough, I don't feel they do, to be honest, because I've probably been going to that league for probably just short of 10 years, and not once have they ever come to that league and done an event, which, do you know what I mean? I just find to be poor. But at the same time, having listened to a few things on YouTube from Kick It Out, they seem to be quite defeated, because how it works, they're funded by the Premier League, so they actually give them money, but it just seems that they're just giving them money, and whatever happens. They don't feel fully backed by the people who are giving them money. So yeah, it's just a funny one. I think there's more that they can do, but they just listen to them and having walked past and just the vibe they get. I feel they don't feel that they're being backed enough. And what Mo said, I do kind of agree with what Mo said earlier. I do feel, it really is not really about focusing on trying to get rid of race. I just feel we just need to have strategies. In terms of people, fans, I feel they need to do the proper bans, the lifetime bans. Sterling, when he was racially abused at the bridge, the fan that done it got a lifetime ban. I feel really need to start dishing out some of these lifetime bans to these fans, because a lot of them are going to think twice. Like, even when they're drunk, they're going to think twice about it. So yeah, start handing out lifetime bans to these fans, and also the club as well. Start hitting them hard where it hurts, not these sort of little fines. I remember a player saying, I can't remember who it was, he said, these fines are the kind of fines I can spend on a night out. Do you know what I mean? Start dishing out proper fines, and just do proper things that can help clear up all these things that are affecting the game we all love. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Samuel. Ladipo, you want to come in now?
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I feel like the Kick It Out movement, I think they just need a bigger push, just a better understanding of just like techniques and things they can use to kind of just better implement the ideas that all of us are sharing now, and just better educating even the lower leagues and the younger locks. I remember I used to play Sunday League when I was younger, and sometimes a lot of the kids would come up with a lot of trash themselves, and I don't know where they're carrying that from, but even just putting it out at a grassroots level, and then obviously on a wider scale, even just having better talks and just trying to push a better ideology towards just a general unity aspect within football, because that's what I believe it to be. Like, sport should be an area where it's about excellence and you being what you have to offer, rather than what you are and what your colour you are. It's what you can bring to a team. And I think if the UEFA can kind of bring that to an international level as well, because we're talking about the Premier League, when you go to some countries abroad, when they're just chatting out their chants as well, and they're getting away with all that stuff there, I feel that's quite detrimental on a player's kind of psyche as well. And I think, as someone mentioned earlier, the general message and just helping people, helping better educate people in terms of this racial aspect, I think needs to be pushed more. But I do believe that now this kind of Black Lives Matter aspect has come through quite heavily now. I feel like corporations will be looking to better brand themselves and having a better concept and a better view of these kind of topics, and will be willing to kind of be reciprocated to taking people in to kind of hear what needs to be done. But I feel like till that gets implemented, I don't think much there's much grounds for us lot to be walking on, really, because them lot kind of feel like this is their kind of environment. They have control. This is what they want to do, and we have to follow suit. And I feel like till then, yeah, I definitely believe it's just more about a message and what football's supposed to bring and what they're trying to do, rather than just accepting the crap that everyone's bringing to the table. But yeah, that's just want to add that.
Yeah, I did want to basically, thanks for all your inputs. I think everyone's definitely given some good points, but we do really need to wrap up because we need to kind of finish up really, really quickly. So I did want to give the other hosts basically a chance to quickly close, if you can do it as literally like 60 seconds, as quickly as possible. Yeah. Go on, Coach. I know you've been waiting to say something.
I've been waiting, man. Trying to let people talk when you want to talk is a really problematic thing. Hence the reason why I put myself in that position, so I talk less. But anyway, the point I was going to make, though, is the point that Jide touched on. So regarding the players being able to walk off, and Jide used the example of Colin Kaepernick, I think that's very, very, very important. Reason why it's important, because even in our walks of life, we are fearful to tackle these issues because of the repercussions. So for instance, talking about the repercussions of Colin Kaepernick, he's not been able to play the game ever since he took that knee. But the problem here is that if every black person did take that knee, this would not be a problem. If all of us are kind of organized in a way to say, you know what, this is wrong, and we're going to stand up for ourselves, regardless of what the repercussions are, we're not going to be in this situation. So I feel that definitely we talk about our external forces that we have around us and what needs to be done for us and all these kind of stuff as well. And I totally agree with everything. You have to tackle the external forces. Plus, you also have to look inside and say the internal forces, what can we do? And I feel if it is more of a uniform decisions where black players agree, or if you want to use the term BAME players, but I think when it comes to football, there isn't really much thing as a BAME. It's more black players, isn't it? So let's just say how it is, mate. So if black players agree in football to say that if they do experience that they are going to walk off, it will be very difficult for the clubs and the leagues not to support them if every one of them do this. But the problem is that it's a lamb to the slaughter. We let one of us try to step up for us and we leave them. We're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I work here. I know it's happening to that person, but I don't want to lose my job. And that's the problem that we have. Unless we stand up for ourselves and fight the way we talk good talk. But when it comes to the action, when I mean action, I mean in our own individual lives, us taking a stand, are we making that? Or are we fitting in with the status quo? Are we fitting in with the systematic racism, even though we see it happening all the time in our lives? If we are doing that, then that's the change, because we all need to kind of change our environment. The smaller impacts that we make in our environment will then affect the wider external kind of forces. Anyway, I think my 1 minute is up. So yeah, thank you.
I just say something because I'm not going to say too much. I just said, firstly, I want to say I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I've certainly enjoyed it. I think it's definitely been empowering. I can see a few people say, speaking in the chats as to how they've enjoyed this conversation. And it certainly informed myself about things that's going on within football. But I think, going back to Mo's point, I think definitely I agree. It's a social issue. It's a wider issue in terms of this problem stems from the social issue of racism within society, and it starts from then, and that's where we got to see the changes. I think in terms of like going forward, in terms of seeing what changes we can on the pitch, I do agree maybe a unified approach by the players might assist. But as you said, Coach, it's a lamb to slaughter. Some people might be thinking about their pockets over others, and it's a question of whether everyone will be will be in agreement on that particular approach. I think that sort of approach could bring back some form of radical change, because it will be something that's never been seen before. And I think that's what we need. I think we need something to shake up the system. It's about changing the system. It's not about changing anything else. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be radical change. Nothing more than that. So I think, yeah, we got to take it from that.
What I wanted to add is I'm just going to give a brief analogy with football and education. Education, you have children that are coming to school, and then they're growing up, going to year 6. And one of the children misbehaving or being racist towards. But if the teacher does not implement the situation or discipline the person that is racist towards the victim, that student will continue being oppressed, and then eventually will want to leave the school, and then from there be bullied, right? So if you take that same principles into football, the teacher and the head teacher has falsely act and did something, right, towards the person that is bully or racist towards that student, right? If you do the same implementation towards football, then that will stop. Because I am hearing what the audience are saying, yeah, social distancing mindset and so on. But sometimes the club are the club that owns the football. FIFA, Premier, whatever, they own it. FA, they own it. So if they implement something within themselves into the institution, the whole system can change. But if they don't themselves, or maybe even perhaps themselves are even racist, the directors, the CEO, if they're racist in the boards, how is it they're going to be changing in the system? So maybe perhaps those areas need to be looked into. And yeah, I'm really glad this conversation has happened, and I'm thank you for everyone as well. But there has to be change, and as what Cam just addressed, is the system. The system needs to change, and if that system is not changed, nothing else within that body can change. And that's where I have to close it from here on my side.
Yeah, no, honestly, thank you, everyone. It literally has been a great conversation. All your input, everyone that's mentioned anything, honestly, all the different perspectives and ideas have been great. How I would want to close is definitely, I will come back and say, earlier I did say about not fighting racism, but then protecting our Black people is in itself fighting it in that sense. So what I would say is this: there's two elements, I would say, on the organizational side and company responsibility. I believe they should focus more on protecting our community, and then, but the real solution in terms of to stop this is that our community ourselves. I always believe we need to fix ourselves up first before we can handle anything externally. And so it just comes back to what Kojo was saying in terms of, unless we're all prepared to have that same stance and fight united together, then that's only the real way you'll see big change in that sense. The companies will be forced to act in a certain way they'll be forced to act in a certain way to protect us. So on that note, great conversation. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciate all your input. This is the LDM Perspective. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other podcast media platforms. If you want to make any other comments or anything outside of that, make a comment on our YouTube channel. We will follow up. We do monitor those. Share, like, subscribe. And we thank you again. We appreciate all your help. Liverpool are going to win the Premier League. I want to end on that note. All right. And thank you. Bro.
You're a fortune teller, isn't it? Anyone could say that Liverpool's going to win, of course.
All right. Have a good night, my guys.
Guys, thank you for joining.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.